So in the last video, we discussed market outcomes in monopolistically competitive markets. And we saw that in the short run, a monopolistically competitive firm can earn positive or negative profits, but in the long run, firms will enter or exit these markets, shifting the demand curve until long-run economic profits are always equal to zero. Remember, this was very similar to what happened in perfectly competitive markets in the long run. The supply curve shifts until economic profits are zero in the long run. Let's look a little closer at that relationship. So here we see on the left a monopolistically competitive firm in the long run, and on the right a competitive firm in the long run. So notice each of them, when they're producing where marginal revenue equals marginal cost, which is here for the competitive, monopolistically competitive firm, and here for the perfectly competitive firm, each of them is earning zero economic profit because the price is equal to average total cost at that point. What is different, though, is the shape of the demand curve. And what are the implications of that for the market? So one of the implications is that one of the differences in the long run is in monopolistic competition, there's what we call a markup. So there's a space between marginal cost and price. You've marked up the price of your product higher than what it costs you to produce, right? Unlike in competitive markets, we have a more efficient outcome where the price is equal to marginal cost. So remember the blue line here in a competitive market, because these firms are price takers, their demand curve is the same thing as their marginal revenue, which is the same thing as their price curve, right? So the price is equal to marginal cost in a competitive market because price and marginal revenue are the same, and marginal revenue equals marginal cost when you're maximizing profit. So there's a markup in the monopolistically competitive market where they're charging a price higher than marginal cost. And you'll notice that they're also charging a price that's higher than their lowest average total cost. Here, under competitive markets, the price is equal to their average total costs, the bottom of the average total cost curve, right? So, monopolistic competition versus competitive markets in terms of price, marginal cost, and long-run average total cost. In perfect competition, price is equal to marginal cost. In monopolistic competition, price is greater than marginal cost, and we have a markup, where the markup is the difference between the price and the marginal cost. In perfect competition, the price is equal to the minimum average total cost. In monopolistic competition, the price is greater than the minimum average total cost. So price is higher in monopolistic competition than it is in perfect competition. And you should expect this because there's that monopoly piece, right? You're not the only person selling burgers, but you're the only one who sells the Big Mac. You're the only one who sells the burger like yours, and so you can charge a little bit more for it because it's different. It's differentiated from its competition. What else is going on? So that's in terms of price. Let's look at what's going on in terms of quantity in these markets as well. So remember back when we discussed competitive markets and we discussed the long run of competitive markets, we talked about different types of scale. We talked about economies of scale as you're making long run choices to increase or decrease the overall size of your production process, your scale of your firm. And we said that efficient scale happens whenever your average cost of production is at a minimum. We said efficient scale is at the bottom of the average total cost curve, right? And anything to the left or to the right of that is inefficient. It's not the quantity that minimizes your average total cost. But notice in the competitive market, when we're producing at a level where marginal revenue equals marginal cost, in the long run, we will be producing at the bottom of the average total cost curve. We will be producing an efficient scale, which is also, you can notice, is the place where supply, if you remember, marginal cost equals supply, and demand cross, where the market is efficient, right? What's going on over in monopolistic competition, though, is that when we produce at a quantity that maximizes our profit, we are going to be producing with an average total cost up here, not down here. So we're not producing at efficient scale. We're producing with what's called excess capacity. We could, in other words, increase our scale and ramp up our production, and while we did that, we would be decreasing our average total cost. We would still be experiencing economies of scale if we increased our level of production. We have excess capacity to increase our level of production, our quantity of output, and at the same time decrease average total cost. When we're maximizing profit, we are not minimizing average total cost. In other words, we're not producing at efficient scale. So another difference between monopolistic competition and competitive markets is the long run scale and output at which we're producing in each market. So in perfect competition, in the long run, the firm produces a minimum efficient scale. In monopolistic competition in the long run, the firm is producing with excess capacity or with higher average total cost than is possible. So why not produce more? If these firms could produce more and decrease their price, their cost, average total cost, why don't they do it? Don't you want to decrease your costs in order to maximize your profits? Well, yes, but cost is not the only piece of profit, right? Profit involves revenue and cost. If you could reduce your costs without changing your revenue, then absolutely, no brainer, reduce your costs. The problem is for a monopolistically competitive firm, they face that downward sloping demand curve, and so if they increase their quantity, sure, they would reduce their average total cost, but they'd also have to lower their prices, reducing their profits. It's more profitable for the firm to produce at excess capacity. And remember, your goal as a firm is not efficiency. Your goal is not lowest cost. Your goal is highest profit. And how do you have the most profit? You produce at a level where marginal revenue equals marginal cost, even if that means that your average total cost is not minimized. So compare that to perfect competition. In perfectly competitive firms, they're able to operate at capacity at the minimum of average total cost, because when they change their level of output, they don't have to change their price. And so they can produce more, lowering their costs while not affecting their revenues. So of course they'll do that, and they'll go to that point where their average total cost is minimized. The overall output then is higher in perfect competition than it is in monopolistic competition.